Hi friends, my name is Anfisa and for the last 10 years I have been a product designer. Now, out of those 10 years, 6 years I have been freelancing. I know, that's quite a lot. And somebody recently asked me if I can share my client project proposal template. In the past I've been using Sketch, but I thought, it will take me 2 hours. Let's just adjust it to Figma and then I can also share it with you so everyone can access it and adjust it to their freelancing needs. Now, in a second, I will also walk you through this template step by step, but in order to access it, you will need to use the link in the description under this video to sign up to my email list, and then in 2-3 minutes, you should receive the email with a download link. If you didn't receive it, just let me know in the comments. I'll try to make sure you still get it, okay? Now, as you've duplicated this file to your Figma profile, you will be able to start adjusting it step by step. And obviously, the most important part for any freelancer is recognizability and trust. Being a freelancer means being a service provider. And every touch point, especially the first touch point when you're still building the trust and the relationship with your client, is super important. That is why we need to start from adjusting the branding, then communication style, and then of course the modules and the pages with which you will be trying to communicate to your client, your project, your objectives, your milestone of the process, the timeline, and of course the budget, right? So let's do this one by one. I will walk you through all those modules and how I would adjust it if I were you. And first things first, of course, we'll need to start by adjusting the styles, which is typography and colors, the atoms of your brand DNA, right? So first things first, you will go to typography in the top right corner, and you will be able to change the typography to whatever is your style. I really don't know. Let's say Mina, and you will immediately see that it is reflected down here in the first page. You don't have to touch those styles. This is just for the preview to make sure it's correct font and how all those styles will be looking in the next pages. So I'm not going to change that, but you can also change your accent color right here. You will immediately see this reflected in every single page, right? And on the next step, we will be updating the reusable components that are used in almost like all those pages. So the first two components right here is the top and bottom of the page. On every single page, you will also be seeing the title. And the title will also have the subtitle. Of course, you can remove the subtitle if you want to be concise and you don't want to show it. That's one way to go about it. And then some other elements such as numbers, if you would use some bullet points at the block with number, title, and description. Then the project step or milestone, and other things such as table of content list, the signature space, and the table space, and also the table elements, which are, by the way, resizable. So you can also adjust them to different grids. Right? So you can change here the style, you can maybe change the rounded corners here, you can add here the strokes or the shadows or whatever other properties of your brand. And as you've done that, we can actually start moving on to the next page. You can immediately notice that every single content page will use the layout grid, which you can just select and hide if you wish, or you can also adjust it and say maybe you want to use 6 columns, maybe you want it to be wider. Again, it really depends on your style. For now, I just used my grid. So now the juiciest topic is the actual content of every single page on the template. And first things first, I always try to have the start page and the end page, and between those pages of obviously the content with the expectation from the project. On the first page, on the cover page, you can go creative. It's really your space to add there your personal touch to it. In my case, I just try to personalize it with the name of a client and specifically what is this project about. On the second page, then I give a little bit more of a testimony of how can I help, basically. So here the goal is to communicate who I am, what kind of expertise do I have, and why exactly can I help them solving this problem. So make sure you kind of back up your previous experience with, or connect your previous experience with the area that this client is operating in. Then the next page is table of content. It's basically where I try to break down my process, the expectations from the project, the timeline, and the budget. So this will be the clickable page, which a client can click through and jump right on any page. I will show you that in a minute. And the next page is actually objectives. So this is, as you can notice here, it's the first page of the real content here. It is the content of, or a subject of a matter for our project. And I really like to start from the objectives simply because it's when I make sure we are on the same page. So normally how it happens with me, I try to talk to a client on the call right before preparing this proposal. In that first call, I will need to understand their problems. I will need to focus and listen what kind of business they have, what kind of problems they are experiencing at the moment, what kind of objectives they are having, and really trying to kind of dive deeper into what are they trying to achieve with a designer. Is it just that they're trying to improve the trustability or usability, or maybe expanding the product to certain new demographics, or are they trying to validate hypothesis? Whatever it is, I just need to try to listen to them and understand how can I help them achieving their business goals. And that's why I try to start from objectives and making sure I understand their problems and I can help them solving them. So writing it down will help solidifying that we're on the same page, that I understood them. And also, as we have established and written down on a paper the goals we are working towards, that will help me to understand the scope of a project and then breaking it down into the stages, the specific steps that I'm going to take, and then timeline and the budget, right? That is basically the reason why I start with objectives. And so I'll start talking about my process, and usually it's this divergent, convergent mindset that I try to explain to my client. And then sometimes they also would like to understand the actionable steps that will take us there. That is why I would also sometimes add the methods that I'm going to use. But I would also like to add here a disclaimer that it doesn't necessarily mean that we will need to use specifically those methods. Those are just great examples. But maybe sometimes I will not need to use personas, but instead I will be using archetypes and use user stories to operate and build the flows. So it really depends, but this is just a baseline, and I want them to tactically understand how I'm going to solve their problem. Then the next page is kind of optional, deliverables. If you can notice in the first call with your client that the client really like tactical, specific, tangible results, maybe you can also communicate what exactly they are getting from collaboration with you. These could be specific documents that they can leverage and then use across their team in order to make a better strategic decisions, even as the business owners, right? You can also explain that here are the specific deliverables, user's journey results. You'll be getting the concepts, the ideation, whatever it is. It's at least the knowledge that they're getting from you, and you can just specify what kind of formats they will be getting it into. And then basically two most important modules that the client is here for, right? The timeline and the budget. So how long will it take me, my business, to achieve the results, and then how much it will cost me. So how much money should I invest in this project? Then logically, I jump into the timeline because based on my process, that formulates the scope, right? And that it also lays down on my availability and time it will take me. And here I also like to use the stages I was just communicating, right? Divergent, convergent stages, which is basically discovery, definition, development, and delivery, and how much time it usually takes. And then finally, pricing. And here you can see why, because in the timeline, I would say how much time it should take us. And then based on that timeline, I will need to say, here is how much our cost, and here is how I calculate it based on this timeline, right? So, talking about the pricing, it's actually the topic we need to dive in a bit more in depth, because there could be different pricing types, right, depending on the project. And that is the reason why you're seeing the variant with 3 types of pricing here. One way to work together is if you notice that the client is really output based, especially if it is a more complex, bigger kind of platform that you will be working on. For example, it could be a B2B, B2C kind of platform where there would be different target users, and those are slightly different projects, right? So the client would also expect different outcomes and different deliverables. And so sometimes you would have to work based on the output milestones. That's one way to go about it, right? Second way to go about it is when the project is maybe undefined, and before doing the research, you really cannot evaluate the scope. Maybe you first have to do the discovery, do the research, and prioritize your findings to then kind of formulate your MVP project that you will have to build and test. In that case, maybe monthly retainer is slightly better approach, because all you know is that you will have 20 hours per week. And based on this, you can agree on, let's say, 2-3 months to start working together and build the first minimum viable product or version of the product. So that could be another option. And then sometimes if you understand the problem area pretty well, you don't have to dive so deep into discovery. You can immediately start kind of breaking down your project into deliverables. The scope is clear, and maybe you have some hypotheses that you will need to validate through the research stage, but at least you exactly know what you're trying to build. In my case, I would usually try to say, okay, this will take us 9 weeks. I will have about 20 hours per week to work on the project, because maybe I also have another project at the same time. So that's why 20 hours per week. And then also I know that my baseline pricing is $50 per hour. So obviously $50 per hour per this amount of weeks. This is the total. And you can again agree on the budget really upfront, so the client is really prepared and manages their expectation well. I really like the fixed contract approach, to be very honest. And then again, another optional step here is to communicate what is needed from them, so they know what to prepare if they're already sold and if they want and they're excited to start working with you. The next very important page for you as a freelancer is terms of service. So on this page, I'd love to stop for a second just to say that you should really validate those terms with your legal consultant. I use those particular points. Actually, this is exactly the content that I was using there, but it's really very different in every country, and you just need to make sure that the content you're putting here is protecting you and your client in case if you cannot work together, if something doesn't go well, if the communication style doesn't work with you guys, and everybody needs to know, what happens in case if things do not work out, especially because it's a first-time client, you didn't work before together, so it's important to manage your risks. And then finally, the sign-off. So it's the place where if everybody agrees on everything, and the timeline and the budget and expectations and the process, then you just have to write your name, sign it, and that's it. And then you're ready to go, right? So that is everything I wanted to communicate with you baseline, and literally at this point you can stop watching the video. This is all you need to know, and this is it. At this point you can just go down below in the description under this video, add your email and receive this template to your email. But if you want to check how I'm actually using it, then stick with me for a couple of minutes and we will go through this. So now let's switch to the example page. This is actually the real proposal that I was sending to one of the clients. Of course, for the privacy, I've removed their name from here, but literally the content is the same. And what's important for you here is that I am sending this as the link to read in the browser. So one way to go about it is to just sort of select all those pages, go to File and export frames to PDF. Another way, which I find a little bit more, step beyond, is to send it as a prototype link. So what you will do is switch from design to prototype tab, and in the first page, prepare it as a first link, right? Kind of create the flow, connect all those pages together, especially the table of content. Make sure you connect this table of content to other relevant pages. And there you go. You can always find the link and copy it and send it to your client in the email. This is really handy when you realize that you maybe did a typo, but you already sent that PDF in the email and oops, I have to fix it right now. So maybe a better way to deal with it is that if you just send the link, but the content will be always on your site and you can always adjust the content. Next morning you wake up, you realize you did a typo, you can fix it in that link, right? So you send the link, and as the client opens this link, they will be able to see this in the browser mode and start clicking through every single page. And I'll just add here a couple of moments. So remember, I told you that in the first page, it's important to leverage your case and establish your expertise. So make sure to do that and explain how exactly your expertise or experience is related to your client problem area. Then, of course, like I said, each of those sections will be clickable, so a client can actually jump right into the budget if they are interested in it more. Then objectives. Remember, like I said, you need to make sure that this communicates the key priorities and the problems that client is currently communicating to you, so you guys are on the same page. Then based on this is not a reusable content. I always kind of use this content, but then breaking it down to the methods, then explaining the deliverables, which we already went through. And then here, literally all I'm doing when I'm preparing the next client proposal is changing the duration, the delivery dates, and saying when they can expect it. That's it. And of course, the budgets. Remember how I told you that the objectives, they dictate the timeline and the timeline dictates the budget. So this is how I tie that up together. And then of course, communicate based on my hourly rate, based on my availability per week. This is how much it should cost them total. All right. This is, by the way, the fixed term contract template or variant in the template. And then sign off and the happy end. And that's all I wanted to talk to you about. I do hope that this template could be useful to you. Please let me know if it is so. If you used it, do let me know how you found it, or if I need to adjust something. If there is a feedback that I should consider, please let me know just in the comments. Or also if you think that I should create more of those templates, and specifically on which topics, also let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to hear your feedback. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching it through. Hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you on the next videos. Bye bye.